My name is Zach Steele, Z-A-C-S-T-E-E-L-E. I'm the Emergency Management Director for Troup County, Georgia.
What is the information that you just received from FEMA about your application?
We received word from FEMA yesterday down through the state of Georgia that the state of Georgia's request for a federal declaration had been denied as it didn't meet all the requirements and the threshold that FEMA has set forth.
So what was the request and was there a specific amount of money that you requested?
So there's a lengthy process that goes into a declaration request. Obviously, during the specific storm that this one was related to on March 26 and the flooding that followed the EF3 tornado there for a few days, West Point, Georgia, even into the unincorporated areas of Troup County, had some major impacts with almost 21 miles of tornado damage on the ground and flooding that took place, I believe, with close to 11 inches of rain during that. So we sustained quite a bit of damage in that. So we worked close with Director Chris Stallings at GEMA and his staff to try to work through this. We conducted a damage assessment on April the 4th for individuals. And then on April the 17th and May 17th, we conducted joint damage assessments for public damage, which can include anything from debris removal, roadway damage, culverts, bridges, all that, all the way to analyzing what the cost for the emergency preparation work was. So all in all, GEMA worked really hard to put this together. And I think they asked for public assistance for about 12 counties and individual assistance for 2 counties in that. And obviously we were substantially affected by that. And that request was denied yesterday.
What was the monetary amount that Troup County was hoping to get?
I don't have an exact figure on that. Obviously, those are things that once the declaration's in place, then you start figuring out exactly what the costs are. You start analyzing all the paperwork that you go through. And, you know, it's broke down into a lot of categories. You have Category A, which talks about the debris removal. And that's a very large piece of, after a storm response, is actually getting through and realizing how many trees were down, how was it affecting the right-of-ways, county right-of-ways. And of course, you've got GDOT here working through the state and their portion of it. And then you've got Category B, which covers all your emergency protective actions, fire, EMS, law enforcement, any overtime you got to pay to sustain that. And you know, Category C is a big part for us in the March 26 storms, because that's where you start covering in the culverts, the bridges, the roadways, and things of that nature.
What is the expense that Troup County has already had that maybe you were hoping this federal money could have helped reimburse you, or where do you stand with that?
I'm not sure exactly what the total cost are. Obviously, it's been a long year for us. 2 EF2 tornadoes here on January the 12th, an EF0 tornado on February the 17th, and then the large tornado on March 26th. So it's been a damaging and expensive year for Troup County, as well as City of LaGrange and part of West Point and Hogansville as well.
Well, having said that, federal money came through for January and for February?
It did not for February. February was a very small tornado, EF0 in size. I believe the storm track was just a little over 5 miles.
And how much money came in for January?
We're still in the process of working through that declaration process. It's an extremely lengthy reimbursement process for diving into all the analytics, diving into each department, pulling this paper, pulling that paper. And it takes a long time to get it all together. Hopefully those totals will be in place here in the next month or 2.
How important was this March declaration then to the work that still needs to be done?
Well, our citizens are paramount for us, and it's our job to make sure that we do anything possible to serve them. We're going to continue to do that. Obviously, we're extremely disappointed that the declaration didn't go through. We're thankful to Director Stallings and his staff. Governor Kemp and the governor's office were very key players in making this go through. We communicated quite a bit with Senator Ossoff's office and his team. Those people worked around the clock, and you know, we just came up short in that. But stand assured, the county's going to do everything we can to find additional resources or anything out there to keep serving our citizens.
Is there some question about whether there was damage that reached a level that had to meet the standards that FEMA has for these kinds of grants?
There's a threshold they have in place, and this is probably a question for GEMA and Director Stallings and his staff, their external affairs team as well. But you know, FEMA looks at, when they look at a declaration, they look at 159 counties and the total effect of the state of Georgia, not just what happens in Troup County. So it's important for the citizens to remember that while FEMA's looking at the big picture, you know, we get caught up looking in just home for us. But there's 158 other counties that FEMA looks at when it comes to this. So that declaration really goes statewide, not necessarily county specific.
You talk about the blows, repeated blows, January, February, and March from these storms. But what's left to be done, specifically regarding the March impact, but overall as well?
Well, it's a lengthy recovery process. Debris removal and disposing of that debris is something that takes probably close to a year in some of this. And our county road department engineer, James Emery, and his staff are working continuously to do that, and it's causing them to put a lot of other projects on hold. But the county's very thankful for James and his staff to be working so hard for that. But always preparing for the next one's the most important thing too, and it's important to remember for the people out there is while we're focused on recovering from January, February, and March storms, we're also preparing for the next one. Unfortunately, you can't be always looking in the rearview mirror when it comes to natural disasters and weather and like that.
I know you're focused on getting the work done, getting the repairs done, one way or the other. But what kind of, hindrance or how will this slow down your efforts?
Well, it's not going to slow down our efforts at all. We're going to pick up and move on tomorrow, and we'll find local resources, communities, grants, what other options are out there for us to be able to serve our citizens. That's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to work hard for them.
Are there specific, I believe there was a bridge that was out, for example, on Adams Road, was it?
Mm-hmm.
What can you name some examples of what work still has to be done?
Sure. Adams Road was a bridge that had some damage sustained from that. And obviously, one thing by understanding that we're going to be denied for this declaration, it allows the county to go forth in making those repairs while we might have been waiting to see if we were going to get a declaration of funding, and then that would have kind of put the work on hold. But now that we know the answer to this, we'll start work on that bridge pretty quickly.
Where's the money going to come from?
That's a tough question. Obviously, that's something I would defer to the Board of Commissioners and the county manager on that. But I can tell you from the boots on the ground staff, we're going to keep working hard for our citizens.
As you've gone around the county the last few months, how's everybody doing? It's a big blow to a lot of people on a very personal level.
Yeah, you know they've grown weary. Everybody's scared. You know, when red pops up on the radar now, it's a very scary situation in Troup County, as it always should have been. But obviously, it's quicker to throw a red flag, if you will, in some of that. But we're preparing constantly. We have a team that works in the Emergency Operations Center. We're monitoring weather now. Beforehand, we're doing a lot of things that we can try to do and prepare and educate our citizens on that. But anything we can do to help our citizens, the residents, we're going to do that.
And I guess, what are people telling you? People who, I guess, maybe they know you're working as hard as you can, but they get impatient too.
They do, and you have to empathize with them sometimes because you can understand that, you know, we're coming up on the 3-month mark of that major tornado. So some people lost everything they had, and we're doing what we can to try to help them. You know, a lot of people forget too that Noonan suffered a tornado. I believe it was 2 years to the day in 2021, EF4, very substantial damage, and they also did not get a declaration of that disaster. So the city of Noonan and some of those people in Coweta County can see some of the same effects that we've gotten through this one.
Is that a way of showing people that the work can get done despite this, or what's the message?
Absolutely. The message is a team of one people. I'm very proud of Troup County, City of West Point, City of LaGrange, Hogansville, the countless volunteer groups that came in. And I would, if I started naming them, I'd leave one off and I'd feel terrible about it. But there was so much volunteer work that went into helping people just get into their homes, get some of their personal belongings. And that was the key in the first few days. But there's still groups working behind the scenes in the long-term recovery, because as the response shifts to recovery, you've got your short-term and your long-term recovery. Everybody sees the week or two when the cameras are on and the debris is picking up and the homes of damage are still there. But there's still long-term recovery groups working hard for these people, helping them. And some of that is taking care of the mental health needs and some of the psychological issues that come with people that survive these storms.
As far as FEMA is concerned, is there any appeal process here that you can pursue?
There is an appeal process. Obviously, you know, Troup County doesn't file the declaration. We were just a large part in requesting it. And once again, I would defer to Director Stallings and his staff on what maybe their future plans are. But we certainly support GEMA and the governor's office any step moving forward in this.
Are those numbers available as to how much the county has expended so far and how this is, I guess, impacting the county's ability to meet its obligations and budget for everything?
Yeah, like I said, that would be a question I would defer to the Board of Commissioners office.
Can you talk to what were those requirements or those thresholds that were met?
So FEMA requires a threshold right at $19 million statewide in public damage, and from what I'm understanding, we fell short of that in that request. And once again, it's not a Troup County number. It's a culmination of all the 12 counties, I believe it was, that they filed for in the state of Georgia.